Chapter 778. Wabiai led Gu Mengmeng and continued to swim upstream. They could already see people fighting. Huge waves surged beneath the surface of the sea. The battle between the sea tribes was even more brutal than that between the wild beasts on land. Gu Mengmeng tried her best to distinguish between friend and foe, and finally found Fei Rui and Carter under the guidance of that head of golden hair. At that moment, the two of them were being attacked by another member of the sea tribe. From the looks of it, that person should also be third level. It was hard to say who would win if he fought Carter head-on, but Carter had to deal with him while protecting Melinda at the same time. It was inevitable that he was being attacked from both sides. Gu Mengmeng quickly swam over and turned to protect Fei Rui and his sister behind her. She faced the enemy's attack head-on and smiled coldly. She didn't even raise her hand. The attacker didn't hesitate at all because of Gu Mengmeng's appearance. Not only did his movements not slow down, they even became fiercer. In just an instant he adjusted his angles slightly. He was going to take Gu Mengmeng's life. However, before that sword-like nose could reach within 3 steps of Gu Mengmeng, it stopped abruptly. The attacker frowned and suddenly turned back to look. His heart skipped a beat and his face contorted in shock. Fear contorted his face and he didn't even have time to shout for help before half of his body was bitten off by Wabiai. Blood spread across the sea like a red spider lily blooming in the sea. It was demonic and strange, carrying with it a strong aura of death. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Wabiai threw away the half-fish wrapped in his snake tail in disgust. Then he watched in disgust as it slowly sank into the poisonous fog of the abyss, gradually rotting and dissipating. Twisting his neck, he scanned the surroundings. That gaze was just like looking at food. Great messenger. Fei Rui grasped Melinda's hand and pushed her to Gu Mengmeng's side. Great messenger, please help me take care of my sister. If we all die here today, please bring her back to Saint Nazir. Even if she becomes partners with a land beast, it's fine as long as she survives. As he said that, Fei Rui glanced at Carter. Carter pursed his lips but didn't say a word. The other party had come prepared. They had concentrated their attacks on Melinda from the start, forcing him to stay by her side to protect her. He could only watch helplessly as his people were scattered by the other party and killed one by one. Now that the giant fish tribe had suffered heavy losses, it was doubtful if they could even survive to the end, much less protect Melinda. He wanted to have her, but compared to his own wish, her survival was more important. She was so beautiful and kind that no matter how vulgar the land orcs were, they would still take pity on her. If it was the tribe of the messenger of the beast deity, she would have a good life. Clenching his fists tightly, Carter slowly took a step forward, ready to fight. It was the sorrow and heroism of a warrior who would never return. But just as he took a step forward, his waist tightened. Melinda hugged Kate's waist from behind and said in a nasal voice, "I'm not leaving. I want to be with Kate. Even if we die together." Chapter 779. Carter and Melinda had no idea what Gu Mengmeng was saying. They only saw her gently nudge the 3 of them away from the battlefield before instructing, "All members of the giant fish tribe and mermaid tribe, retreat behind your tribe leaders." As soon as he finished speaking, the scattered clansmen retreated in a sorry state. The enemies were intimidated by Wabiai and didn't dare to move. They could only watch helplessly as they left. "Is there no one else on our side?" Gu Mengmeng turned back and asked. Carter scanned the surroundings and nodded. Gu Mengmeng smiled slyly. "Children, it's time to eat." As soon as he finished speaking, countless water snakes surged out from all directions and surrounded the battlefield. Then they gradually tightened the encirclement and gathered the enemies again and again. Those who attempted to break out of the encirclement or escape would immediately be bitten by the agile water snakes for a second. In less than 3 seconds they would no longer have the strength to struggle. Then the water snakes would bite their heads and slowly swallow their entire bodies into their stomachs. The others didn't dare to escape anymore. They cowered and moved closer to the center. And in the center, waiting for them, was the beast form Wabiai. His bloody mouth was wide open, as if waiting for them to jump into his mouth. Retreat. There was no way out. There was a huge disparity in power. It was supposed to be a sure-win situation, but the moment that female appeared, the tables were turned. Damn it, when did these snakes appear? All the enemies were surrounded by the snakes like sardines in a can. With Wabiai's mouth, he would probably finish them all in 2 mouthfuls. Wait a minute. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and gestured for him to stop. The snake beast's encirclement stopped shrinking and Wabiai also transformed back into his half-beast form out of boredom. He used his tail to sweep up the person who had just spoken and threw him in front of Gu Mengmeng. Fish in the water would never be in such a sorry state. Although he was thrown out, he still landed steadily in front of Gu Mengmeng. He straightened his body and looked rather arrogant. "Greetings, great messenger." Gu Mengmeng sized it up and chuckled. "Oh, so there are stray beasts in the sea too." That person stood up straight. It was not strange that his identity as a stray beast had been exposed. After all, although his side had the numbers of a tribe, they were not united. On land, tribes lived together, but in the ocean most tribes were united. Furthermore, the females in the tribe would not mate with outsiders to ensure the purity of the tribe's bloodline. This was also one of the reasons why Melinda was so resistant and evasive when Kate expressed her desire to woo her, even though she had saved Kate. Although the stray beasts are beastmen abandoned by the beast deity, the beast deity should not have sent the great messenger to kill us all, right? I wonder why the great emissary wants to interfere in our dispute today? That person was rather strong-willed. He didn't think that it was wrong for him to initiate a massacre. After all, this world was ruled by the strong and it was the right thing to do. Gu Mingming smiled at the person in front of her. "Of course the beast deity did not order me to kill you all. Otherwise, do you think you still have the chance to talk nonsense with me?" Gu Mingming slowly and appropriately released a bit of pressure. It was very subtle and not a lot, but it was enough to make people shiver. The pressure of a beast king. That person gritted his teeth and lowered his head in submission. The reason was simply because he was submissive to the strong and had a deep-rooted fear of a superior. Aside from the topic, explain why there were clearly water snakes around but no one came out to rescue them just now. These water snakes were brought out by Wabiai. Since Wabiai did not say anything, Gu Mingming did not intend for them to appear from the start. After all, the sea tribe seemed to be very afraid of snakes. She did not want to create panic. Gu Mingming did not expect someone to attack her the moment she went down to retrieve a pearl, so she did not give the order to protect them. And snakes were cold-blooded by nature. To them, the life and death of others was just a trivial matter. They would not care. Chapter 780. There was still a bunch of weaklings behind her. After the previous battle with the stray beasts, Gu Mingming already knew the importance of controlling her emotions. She had been working hard to control her beast pressure over this period of time, and had achieved some success. Seeing that the person who came out to negotiate had given in, there was no need for her to continue pressuring him. After all, what if Melinda was scared to death before the stray beasts? As for why I want to interfere in your dispute, you have to ask yourself. Gu Mingming smiled condescendingly. Don't tell me that you stray beasts who have been banished by the various tribes just happened to meet them and wanted to exterminate them when you passed by. Why not? Stray beasts do not follow the rules. That person was a little guilty but still forced himself to look calm. Gu Mingming replied with an "oh." So stray beasts do not follow the rules. All right then, let's leave the stray beasts to them to settle. Gu Mingming took a step forward and slapped that person's shoulder, sending him back into the water snake's encirclement. Gu Mingming's strength was so strong that even a fish could not resist the force. When he could barely steady himself, he felt a pain in his lower body before he could say another word. Turning his head, he realized that his lower body had already entered Wabiai's mouth. The snake's venomous eyes were vertical, emitting a chill that made one's entire body shiver. But he did not even have the chance to beg for mercy before he was swallowed into Wabiai's mouth and died. If it was in the past, Gu Mingming would definitely be a little afraid when faced with such a scene. But after inheriting Snake's memories, she was very clear on one thing. That was to be merciful to one's enemy was to be cruel to oneself. She had already heard the water snake's report. These stray beasts had planned to kill Carter, Fei Rue and the rest, then disguise themselves as them. When Gu Mingming emerged from the abyss, they would suddenly attack and snatch the kiss of the ocean. But they didn't expect a few things. Firstly, the poisonous fog didn't kill Wabiai, nor did it weaken Gu Mingming. Secondly, they underestimated Fei Rue, Carter and the rest. They didn't expect that they would rather risk their lives to stay here and provide support for Gu Mingming. They were clearly not powerful, but none of them tried to escape. If Gu Mingming came back later, looking at the less than 20 people left behind, Gu Mingming's heart was bleeding. How majestic was the scene when they arrived. In less than half a day there were less than 20 people left. Gu Mingming hugged Fei Rue's arm and grinned. Our little shit looks ferocious when he eats. Don't scare Melinda. Let's return to the shore first. Fei Rue and Carter turned back to look at Wabiai. The absolute disparity in strength was on full display in front of him. Chapter 781. The moment she broke through the water, the ripples on the surface of the sea shattered the afterglow of the setting sun. The orange-red light shone on her body, making her look like a warrior returning from a blood-soaked battle, exuding an inexplicable sense of heroism. Elvis rushed to the shore and pulled Gu Mengmeng over from Fei Rui's hands. He used his chest to warm her up and scanned her body with his X-ray eyes. He only heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that she was unharmed from head to toe. Leah wrapped Gu Mengmeng up in a beast's skin that was already warmed up. He looked up and did a head count. He frowned slightly but didn't ask anything. When they had left, there had been a huge crowd. But when they returned, there were only 2 or 3 of them left. Fei Rui and Carter were still bleeding, while Melinda looked haggard and there were over 20 people behind them. It was easy to guess what had happened without asking. Leah and Elvis were well aware of how much Gu Mengmeng valued human lives. They didn't want her to shoulder all these lives on her own. They observed Gu Mengmeng carefully. Seeing that she wasn't too affected, they felt a little more at ease. But what they didn't know was that Gu Mengmeng could already control her emotions well. It wasn't that she was numb to death, but because she knew that the dead were gone. She had to look forward, she had to be brave. Only then would the people around her not be affected by her depression. Think about how her emotions had tormented Elvis and Leah the last time? She had to love her own men. She couldn't possibly keep crying and worrying Elvis and Leah every time something happened, could she? Gu Mengmeng spread out the black pearl in her hands for Elvis and Leah to see, saying, "This thing is quite rare. I want to go down again tomorrow to suck up all the poisonous fog that has not been sucked dry, in case it pollutes the water source." What poisonous fog? Elvis's heart twitched as he asked coldly. Gu Mengmeng explained the situation at the bottom of the sea, including how she went down, how she obtained the kiss of the ocean, what she had encountered on the way back, and what Wabi was doing when he didn't follow up. Elvis and Leah were trembling with fear. They gritted their teeth and wanted nothing more than to strangle this troublemaker. Why did she run to wherever there was danger? The poisonous fog was so thick that even Wabi could not withstand it, and she dared to rush in without blinking? With her delicate skin, could she be more resistant to corrosion than Wabi's snake scales? No matter how Gu Mengmeng explained that she was fine, Elvis and Leah were sure that she had been corroded by the poisonous fog to the extent that a layer of her skin had been peeled off. Well, no matter what, I've gotten the kiss of the ocean back. But Gu Mengmeng's gaze landed on Carter's and Fei Rui's faces, then back at Melinda, who was still in a state of shock. The Mermaid Clan and Giant Fish Clan suffered great losses in order to receive me. I cannot just leave like this. Leah said while wiping her hair, "I don't care about other things, but don't mention anything about going into the sea again." Gu Mengmeng turned her head and protested, "I still want to take in the fog, how can I not go into the sea?" Leah did not back down. "Let Wabi absorb the poisonous fog with this stupid pearl. You stay on the shore obediently." Gu Mengmeng said, "I won't." Leah chuckled, his gaze gentle and affectionate. He whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "You have to believe. Elvis and I have 100 ways to make you lose the energy to go into the sea again. Do you want to try?" Chapter 782. What kind of joke was that? Try. She was not stupid. Just Elvis alone could easily make her unable to get out of bed for 3 days. Now with Leah, if these 2 shameless fellows really went all out to teach her a lesson, she would really be dismembered on the bed. Seeing Gu Mengmeng admit defeat, Leah smiled regretfully. He hooked Gu Mengmeng's little chin and said in a slightly resentful tone, "I still wanted to try forcing Polly. What a pity." Gu Mengmeng blushed and pushed Leah away. She then looked at Fei Rui and Carter and said, "There are only so many of you left. It is not practical to split into 2 tribes. Why don't we merge?" Fei Rui doted on his younger sister. He could see that Melinda's feelings towards Carter had changed and he could not bear to disappoint his sister. And Carter was even more so. He could give up his life for Melinda. What else did he have to protect? But there had never been a mixed tribe in the ocean. Although there were only over 20 mermaids and giant fish tribes left, they did not know whether to call themselves the mermaids tribe or the giant fish tribe. Melinda was also in a difficult position. She obviously hoped that her brother and Carter could become a family. She did not want to leave either of them. But it was a heavy topic to decide on which tribe to make disappear. No matter what she chose, one side would be hurt. This was not something she wanted to see. So Melinda took a step forward and looked at Gu Mengmeng. She said timidly, "The great messenger saved all of our lives today. She is our benefactor. We are willing to listen to the great messenger and merge the 2 tribes together. But as for the name, could we trouble the great messenger to help us decide on it?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Melinda and felt a sense of pity for her. She was really different from those coquettish bitches outside. Even if girls saw her, they wouldn't think that her delicateness was fake. Instead, they would really want to hold her in the palm of their hands and protect her. It was the kind of feeling that any girl in front of her would want to become a strong woman and not let others bully her. Gu Mingming thought that if she could give birth to a daughter one day, she would definitely send her to Melinda to be her godmother and let her raise her. She would also raise a well-bred socialite like Melinda. Melinda was practically the epitome of what all mothers in the world called other people's daughters. It was 2F** king rare. Gu Mingming could not resist Melinda's request. Xianxia nodded and pondered for a long time. However, when it came to naming things, the more cautious one was, the less one would be able to come up with an idea. Gu Mingming thought for a while and asked Leah, "What would God's blessing be translated into the beast world's language?" Leah replied, "Bridges." Gu Mingming felt that it sounded rather nice, so she turned to look at Carter and Fei Rui. "What do the two of you think?" This name was too big. To be honest, not to mention the fact that there were only 20 people in this tribe, even if there were 2,000 people, no one would dare to call out such an arrogant name. God's blessing? You don't like it? Gu Mingming looked at the strange expressions on Fei Rui and Carter's faces. It did not look like they did not like it or like it. Instead, they looked a little scared. Chapter 783. Why should I be angry? Gu Mingming was at a loss. Fei Rui lowered his head. You clearly didn't receive the beast deity's blessings, yet you use such a name. This is disrespectful to him. Gu Mingming chuckled. Who said you didn't receive the beast deity's blessings? Fei Rui looked up at Gu Mingming in a daze. His sparkling eyes shone with a glimmer of hope. Gu Mingming pulled Melinda over and planted a light kiss on her forehead. It was just like how the beast deity had kissed her forehead in the dream realm. Gu Mingming said with a sense of blessing, You all risked your lives to protect the beast deity's daughter. How could he not bless you all? Melinda blushed all the way to her neck from Gu Mingming's kiss. It had nothing to do with love or hate. It was just a kind of excitement. It was as if you were suddenly invited to a meeting by the premier of a country. Not only did the premier not put on airs or keep a distance, he even shook hands with you and said, Child, you did very well in your exams. I am praising you on behalf of the country. If it were you, you would also blush. Gu Mingming looked at Fei Rui and Carter. She smiled. What do the two of you think? If you don't like this name, you can give me a name you like. I have no objections. After all, this is your own tribe. You have the right to name yourselves. Fei Rui and Carter exchanged glances. Then they bowed to Gu Mingming. Bridges will forever follow the great messenger. I will be your most reliable servant in the ocean. Actually, Gu Mingming didn't intend to recruit servants. Although she liked a senior from the swimming club, she wasn't that passionate about swimming. Now that she had taken the kiss of the ocean, she probably wouldn't return to the beach for no reason. But after she left, it would be difficult for this small tribe of over 20 people to survive in the ocean. If her name could bring them some protection, then so be it. Nodding her head, Gu Mingming finally accepted the loyalty of the Bridges tribe to her. Fei Rui was originally the prince of the tribe. He should be the next tribe leader. Carter was the first to speak. He gently held Melinda's little hand, his determined eyes filled with tenderness. He had given all his tenderness to Melinda and had nothing left for the world. I just want to stay by Melinda's side. I don't care about anything else. Fei Rui shook his head and said, The strength of the patriarch directly determines the strength of a tribe. I know that I'm unable to support the prosperity of a tribe like Bridges. You should be the patriarch. Although I don't like you, I can't deny your strength and talent. Furthermore, my sister is a princess after all. How can her first partner be a mediocre person? Carter still wanted to say something, but Fei Rui suddenly laughed. Without giving him a chance to speak, Fei Rui continued, Also, after you have mated, I want to return to Saint Nazir with the great messenger. When he said this, everyone present was shocked. Elvis scooped Gu Mingming back into his arms. His powerful aura engulfed everyone, making them want to kneel on the ground. His face darkened and he looked like he was about to tear Fei Rui apart. What do you want? Fei Rui was trembling in fear. His clear eyes were filled with grievance. He looked like he was about to cry. I want to learn the great messenger's new skills, and bring those magical skills back to the ocean. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. A few black figures tiptoed in the night sky and slowly approached the sleeping Gu Mingming. He was secretly delighted in his heart. Although he was powerful, he was a little too arrogant and conceited. He actually slept so soundly. Wasn't he a little too careless? One hand slowly reached towards Gu Mingming, wanting to take away the kiss of the ocean from her. However, before his hand could even touch her clothes, he felt a sharp pain. He looked down and saw that the back of his hand had already started to rot. Chapter 785. Tisk. After a soft sound, the black figure with a broken hand was thrown away. Leah swayed his large tail and said with a disappointed expression, "Do you have any professional ethics? Can you make such a loud noise when stealing? I can't even pretend not to see it. So unprofessional, you let me down." The few people who came along looked at each other. What did he mean? Gu Mingming sat up from Elvis's arms. Elvis's blue eyes were filled with love as he looked at her. He rubbed her little head and said, "In the end, I still disturbed your sleep, right?" Gu Mingming sighed and said, "I knew they were following me, I couldn't sleep well." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face lightly and said, "It's all right, I'll settle it soon." With that, Elvis stood up and walked step by step towards the few thieves who disturbed Gu Mingming's sleep. Even stray beasts have rules. Elvis stretched his neck to the left and right as a warm-up. In a flash, he grabbed the rat beast that was trying to escape and threw it into the sky. A huge eagle owl flew past at a low altitude, and its two claws that were like metal pincers dug into the rat beast's flesh, directly throwing it into the sky. A cry of agony could be heard from 300 meters away, followed by scattered pieces of flesh falling from the sky. A gust of wind blew past and the eagle owl circled in the sky before landing steadily on the ground. He already looked like a sickly young man, his face as white as the moonlight and without a trace of life. His gaze was cold and not sharp, but it was as if he was strangling the throat of the person being stared at, causing fear to rise in one's heart. And all this happened in just 3 to 5 seconds. Taking another step forward, Elvis was like Satan in the dark night, emitting a dangerous aura around him. He was like the king of hell that could not be disobeyed. His words rang in the night sky, like a divine decree from Azura, sending chills down one's spine and making one submit. You can take it by force, but you can't steal it. And you guys have broken this rule. One of the stray beasts was so intimidated by this aura that his legs turned to jelly. He retreated and wanted to escape, but suddenly he seemed to have kicked something and a shiver shot up from the bottom of his feet. He did not even have the courage to look back. The snake's cold tongue licked his neck, and a lazy and slow voice rang in his ears, carrying with it an indescribable malice and ridicule. "Supper? It doesn't look very delicious." Before he could even scream out in pain, his lower body had already been tightly wrapped by the thick snake tail, while his upper body was already in the snake's mouth. The remaining 3 ambushers exchanged glances and quickly locked onto their target, Leah. Although Ian and Leah were 3rd-level orcs, they did not have much of an advantage against land beasts that could fly. Meanwhile, the fox, who looked like a show-off, was obviously the easiest person to defeat in this team. With a sudden movement, the 3 ambushers charged towards Leah with all their might. But Leah chuckled and pointed at his own nose nonchalantly. "I'm being belittled." With a turn, Leah easily dodged the first claw that attacked him. His furry large tail swept across that person's face playfully, with a strong sense of provocation. Chapter 786. The second stray beast that attacked Leah was grabbed by the wrist by Leah. With a snap, his arm was dislocated. It was not forcefully broken, but from the joints. The flesh was still connected, but the bones were broken. That arm was like a pendulum that had lost its power, hanging down casually. TSK, stretching out your claws in front of the witch doctor. Looks like you really don't want your claws anymore. Leah nimbly ducked under the other arm of the second stray beast and hid behind his back. At this moment, the third stray beast's claws had already pierced through the chest of the second stray beast and was heading straight for Lee's throat. Luckily, Leah was not sticking close to the second stray beast's back. Instead, he was 1.5 steps away, so the third stray beast's blood-stained hand missed. He retracted it and threw the second stray beast's corpse onto the ground without any guilt. Leah patted his own chest. "Aya, you scared me to death. I almost got touched by you. TSK so annoying. Our Ming Ming doesn't like others touching me." There was only one of the 3 stray beasts left, and it was the only 4th-level orc among the 3. Given Lee's current abilities, it was very dangerous to go against him. In order not to be attacked from both sides, Leah had decided to get rid of the 2 3rd-level beasts first. But even if it was a one-on-one battle, it was still very difficult to retaliate with the difference in levels. Apart from Gu Mingming, he did not care about anyone else's life or death. Ian wanted to step forward to help Leah but was held down by his shoulder by Elvis. Ian looked at Elvis in confusion, but Elvis turned to look at Gu Mingming. With Gu Mingming's current abilities, helping Leah was just a matter of beckoning her finger. But she did not move at all. She just clenched her fists tightly and stared at Lee's battle. She did not even have the intention of asking Elvis to help Leah. Then, Elvis's gaze was gentle. The corners of his lips curled up into a beautiful curve. Leah had been seen through. The stray beast's fangs pressed towards Lee's spine. If he bit down, Leah would be crippled even if he did not die. "Leah, I won't allow you to get hurt." Gu Mingming sat on the spot. Her voice seemed like a slight ripple, but it could not conceal the waves hidden within. Her voice was trembling. She was afraid. This knowledge made Leah hesitate. Should he continue pretending? If the way he did it for her good made her worry, then would he still persist? No, you can't. Because he had already hurt her once for her own good? He absolutely could not let it happen a second time. With a sweep of its fluffy tail, it sent the stray beast flying. The tip of his foot touched the ground lightly, but his entire body bounced up as if he had stepped on a spring. In an instant, he landed behind the stray beast that had been sent flying and kicked his lumbar vertebrae. The huge impact in Lee's kick caused the stray beast's spine to crack. He flew out in a strange manner, just like a broken doll that did not receive the slightest bit of pity. Then a layer of moonlight enveloped Lee's body, making him look like an elf in the dark night. The bloodstains on his body were not hideous, instead they looked like poppies blooming on the other shore, exuding a fatal temptation. Chapter 787. Gu Mingming cupped Lee's face and gave him a deep kiss. It was a lingering kiss. "Leah, congratulations on leveling up." Leah didn't reply and just hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. This little one was too shrewd now. It was getting harder and harder to deceive her. But this difficulty made him feel an unprecedented sense of bliss. She was paying attention to him like this. She didn't say anything, but she knew everything. After half the night, coupled with the blood and corpses all over the ground, it looked like a slaughterhouse. There was no way she could sleep in this place. Elvis carried Gu Mingming in his arms and used a beast's skin to cover her head to let her catch up on her sleep. Meanwhile, the few males continued their journey towards Saint Nazaire. It was normal for males to not sleep for a few days and nights. They had to stop and rest every night just to take care of Gu Mingming's routine. Although Gu Mingming didn't need to do anything in the middle of the night, she was still very nervous. Now that she was at ease, her deep sleepiness couldn't be dispelled no matter what. She slept all the way until noon when she was woken up by hunger. When the sun was at its hottest, it was the most torturous for Wabi. He lay lazily on the tree, his head drooping, not wanting to talk to anyone. He did not sleep, nor did he move. He just sat there like a rubber snake. Although Ian could fly, his strength was at its peak at night. During the day, he looked even more lethargic and listless, as if a gust of wind could blow him over. He was a male, but he looked as if he was suffering from anemia due to menstruation for 30 days a month. She didn't know what was going on. Seeing how weak he looked like a little sister in the forest, Gu Mingming felt that not feeding him was torture, not to mention letting him hunt. So, Elvis handed Gu Mingming over to Leah and went out to hunt. Gu Mingming sat in Lee's arms and stroked his large tail. She exclaimed in surprise, "Hey, your tail seems to have become thicker after you leveled up." Seeing that Gu Mingming liked his transformation, Leah couldn't help but smile. He said, "The appearance of the Snow Fox tribe will change according to their level." Gu Mingming turned around and looked at Lee's face carefully. Leah was good-looking to begin with. Coupled with his otherworldly aura, he looked like a demon or a deity. Perhaps after looking at him for a long time, Gu Mingming had become immune to it, so she had not carefully scrutinized Lee's facial features for a long time. Gu Mingming then looked at his eyes seriously after he mentioned it. Her eyebrows looked a little thicker than before. She looked a little less charming and more heroic. His tall nose seemed to have narrowed a little, becoming a more standard Western tiger's nose instead of the Oriental lion's nose. The tip of his nose was firm, making his facial features more three-dimensional and deep. A pair of long and affectionate eyes seemed to be filled with spring water, pouring a pool of deep love onto Gu Mingming's face, as if she was the only person in the entire world who could see him. His thin lips did not have a single wrinkle and looked as perfect as a work of art carved by God. His slightly open mouth was like an invitation, making Gu Mingming feel an urge to immediately offer her lips to him. Lee's face was even more perfect than before, so perfect that every angle was like a masterpiece. Chapter 788. It's broad daylight, what nonsense are you spouting? Gu Mingming blushed and lowered her head. However, Leah replied with a meaningful, "Oh." His lips moved closer to Gu Mingming's ear, His warm and ambiguous breath sprayed onto Gu Mingming's earlobe. With a hoarse voice, he said in an ambiguous tone, "So, this is an invitation? You can pamper me at night, right?" She did not know if it was a psychological effect, but Li's hormones seemed to have increased after he leveled up. She should have been used to being teased, but after being teased for half a year, she could no longer resist Li's advances. Li's fingers slid across Gu Mingming's arm from her shoulder to her wrist. His fingertips seemed to carry an electric current, causing Gu Mingming's body to go numb. The only place she could hide was to lean deeper into his arms. Leah was satisfied with Gu Mingming's little action, but his hand landed on the kiss of the ocean in her hands. He tapped it twice nonchalantly and said, "The kiss of the ocean can absorb the poison left behind by Elvis in your body. If you eat it, our mating problem will be solved." Gu Mingming looked at the fist-sized black pearl in her hands and twitched her lips. "Are you sure you won't choke me to death?" Leah lightly knocked Gu Mingming's head. "Silly girl, who asked you to eat it whole? I can crush it and then you can eat it." Gu Mingming had thought Leah was just joking around with his suggestion. Seeing that he was really prepared to crush it, Gu Mingming panicked. She pulled the kiss of the ocean back into her arms and frowned. "No, this is Qichuan's ransom. You cannot touch it." Leah sighed and did not touch the kiss of the ocean again. He just hugged Gu Mingming and said, "What should I do? I'm jealous. MMM?" The top of Gu Mingming's head was pressed against Li's chin. She could not lift her head to look at his expression and could only respond with a single word. Leah said, "Elvis is your first partner and is more important to you than me. I admit that. But now, even the little wolf pups are more important than me. Mingming, my heart hurts." Gu Mingming smiled helplessly. "You are all my family and equally important to me. But Qixian is in a more dangerous situation now, so I have no choice but to prioritize him." "I know." Leah said, "I also promised not to make things difficult for you. I understand the logic, but I still feel very disappointed. I was too greedy, wasn't I? I want to be the most important person to you." Gu Mingming hugged Leah and leaned her face against his chest, saying softly, "I'm sorry." Li's heart skipped a beat. He pursed his lips and chuckled. "You know very well that I prefer your confession to an apology." Without any hesitation, Gu Mingming said softly, "I love you." Leah then smiled contentedly and did not say anything else. He had committed a taboo. He should not have fought for the most important, in front of Gu Mingming. Back then, when Gu Mingming wanted to give him the only one, he was the one who forcefully pushed her into Elvis's arms. Later Mingming asked him to give up. It was he himself who said that even if he could only be a beast pet, it would be fine as long as he could stay by her side. But now he was already her legitimate partner, and he could confidently hold her in his arms. However, people were always greedy. Chapter 789. Actually, you could have leveled up a long time ago, right? Gu Mingming pressed her little face against Li's chest, listening to his heartbeat. Although it was a question, it sounded like a statement when it came out of his mouth. Leah chuckled and did not deny it. Gu Mingming continued, "I thought about it many times after that. Previously, when we were attacked by stray beasts, although you were caught in a pincer attack, the other party was also a third-level orc. With your third-level energy reserves, as long as you broke through the boundary, you could use the level system to turn the situation around. But you seem to rather be injured than leveling up. I always felt that it was strange until last night, when those 3 stray beasts attacked you together without any discussion. Only then did I understand what you were thinking." Li's face carried an indulgent smile throughout. He had always disliked others guessing his thoughts, especially when his thoughts were seen through. He would be very resistant and immediately force himself to hide his emotions even deeper. But when he was seen through by Gu Mingming, he felt a faint sense of excitement and anticipation. It was as if his carefully wrapped present was opened by his beloved, and with just one look, the other party knew how much effort he had put into choosing the present and how meticulously he had wrapped it. The feeling of his efforts being seen and cherished was really good. It was so good that the blood in his entire body warmed up, nourishing every cell in his body. Tell me about it." Leah coaxed Gu Mingming to say more of her thoughts. He liked to hear her describe her thinking process, because he could not enter her brain to see clearly how she looked when her mind was filled with himself. So, he treasured every word she explained to him, and even more so, he treasured the lively expression on her face when she talked about topics related to him. Gu Mingming did not know how Leah was feeling when he looked at her. His gaze towards her was always affectionate and she seemed to have gotten used to it. But thinking about the reason why Leah was unwilling to level up, Gu Mingming could not help feeling a little heartache. She sighed softly and said, You didn't level up because you wanted to focus all the danger on yourself when we encountered a situation like yesterday, using yourself as bait to ensure my safety. His heart trembled. His Gu Mingming was so sensitive, he felt warm and proud, but also a little uneasy. As sensitive as she was, she couldn't accept his kindness with a clear conscience. Gu Mingming looked up and met Li's eyes. She said seriously, "You clearly know that I am already strong enough now, you don't need to do this anymore." Silly girl. Leah rubbed Gu Mingming's head. The sunlight passed through the leaves and landed on his face, bringing much warmth to his smile. He pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to his lips and kissed it before continuing, "No matter how strong you are, you will always be my weakness. If you are even the slightest injury, it would be my heart." Chapter 790. Didn't he know that her heart would ache? No, Leah had always known that. He even hoped that Gu Mingming would never see through his thoughts, but at the same time, he was waiting for her to say, "Her heart will ache." Gu Mingming looked up into Li's eyes and said seriously and cautiously, "When Snake died, I almost couldn't recover from the setback. If not for you and Elvis staying by my side, I might never have been able to walk out of it. Do you want me to experience that kind of collapse again? If you were the one who died, I would break down." Leah hugged Gu Mingming tightly in his arms and kissed her left ear, saying intimately, "I was wrong, I shouldn't have made you worry. Don't be angry, don't be sad, forgive me, all right?" Gu Mingming's chin rested on Li's shoulder and she tilted her head, saying softly, "Hurry up and become stronger, didn't you say that you will accompany me to bully others and become tyrants?" Leah chuckled, holding Gu Mingming's little face and kissing her lips. Under the sunlight, his smile was exceptionally radiant and beautiful, saying, "All right, as long as Gu Mingming says it, I will do it. I will quickly become stronger, then accompany you to bully others and rape others." Gu Mingming basked in the sun, feeling much more relaxed now that she had spoken her mind. Leah would always do what he promised her. He said that he would become stronger, and that he would no longer use himself as bait. This made Gu Mingming feel much more at ease. After waiting for a long time, Gu Mingming turned to look into the distance and said worriedly, "Why isn't Elvis back yet?" Leah also felt that with Elvis's abilities, the time taken for this hunt was a little too long. Not wanting Gu Mingming to worry, he said casually, "After all, this is not our territory, it might be more troublesome to find satisfying prey. You also know, other than meat, he also wants to be picky about the skin." Gu Mingming nodded. Yes. After the rainy season ended, it was going to be winter. At this time, Elvis really had to start preparing the beast's skin for their family to use during the winter. And ever since Gu Mingming appeared, Elvis's requirements for the beast's skin became stricter and stricter. Sometimes, Gu Mingming even suspected that Elvis was a Virgo. Thinking about this, she did not say anything more and continued to nestle in Li's arms, stroking the two. The upgraded version of Big Tail was waiting for Elvis to return. Without a watch, Gu Mingming could only estimate the time. About 1.5 to 2 hours later, Elvis returned with the processed prey. "However, you're hurt?" Gu Mingming immediately jumped out of Li's arms and looked at the palm-sized wound on Elvis's shoulder. Her heart ached. "What happened? Are you in danger?" Elvis looked at his wound and laughed softly. He rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and carried her up while passing the prey to Leah to cook. "No, I was bitten by accident when I was hunting. I have a strong recovery ability. I'll be fine tomorrow or the day after." Gu Mingming frowned and looked at Elvis. "You promised not to lie to me. A 5th-grade orc had been bitten by its prey during a hunt? Why don't you say that a wolf jumped into a rabbit's nest and was eaten by the rabbit?" Chapter 791. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and took a deep breath. She stared into Elvis's eyes for a long time without saying a word. Elvis felt guilty from her stare. Gu Mingming was too observant now and it was too difficult to hide anything from her. "Xiaoming." Elvis opened his mouth, wanting to beg for mercy. But Gu Mingming didn't give him a chance. She raised her head and shouted, "Leah Ian Wabi, follow me." Gu Mingming pushed Elvis and jumped down from his arms. The 3 people who were called out did not say a word and just stood a step behind Gu Mingming. "Xiaoming." Elvis wanted to say something but stopped himself. He wanted to call out to her but didn't know how to start. Gu Mingming frowned and looked at the wound on Elvis's shoulder. Feeling vexed, she shook her head and said, "My man was bitten to this extent. If I don't pull out all his teeth, I am not Gu Mingming." With that, she turned to leave. Leah glanced back at Elvis with a conflicted gaze but he didn't say anything. He carried Gu Mingming and walked in the direction Elvis had come from. There was a rustling sound in the bushes and Gu Mingming knew that it was the little snake that Wabiai had brought out from the Snake King Valley. She instructed, "Lead the way and find the person who bit Elvis for me." The little snake hissed and stuck out its tongue, replying to Gu Mingming in snake language. Then, it shot out in all directions like an arrow released from a bow, fanning out in a carpet search. How could Elvis let Gu Mingming leave just like that? Even if she had the powers of a beast king and a fifth-level pervert like Wabiai was by her side, she was still his female. How could he be at ease if she rushed in without knowing anything? He quickly chased after her, wanting to pull her back from Li's arms. But Gu Mingming turned her head to show her rejection. "Xiaoming." Elvis sighed and finally gave in. "I will tell you the truth, all right? Don't be angry, all right?" Gu Mingming then turned to look at Elvis. The words "lie and you will die" were clearly written on her face. Elvis was not afraid of the heavens, the earth, pain and death. But he was extremely afraid of this delicate little person in Li's arms. There was nothing he could do when she was angry. "The stray beast here are old acquaintances of mine," Elvis said with a frown. Gu Mingming was stunned. "Old acquaintance? Could it be?" Elvis nodded and said, "This is where I was born." Under Gu Mingming's signal, everyone stopped in their tracks and just stared at Elvis. Gu Mingming sighed and opened her arms towards Elvis in Li's arms. "Hug." Elvis chuckled and took Gu Mingming back from Li's arms. He kissed her face and took in her scent greedily. Only then did the uneasiness in his heart slowly dissipate. Wabiai and Ian tactfully retreated far away, leaving space for the family of three. Elvis carried Gu Mingming to a big tree and with a leap, he sat on a branch. Gu Mingming sat steadily in his arms, while Leah chose a branch that was slightly lower than Elvis and Gu Mingming to lie on, raising his head to look at Elvis and Gu Mingming. Elvis calmed his emotions and said slowly, "The person who bit me is my blood-related father beast." Chapter 792. Seeing that Gu Mingming's expression was not right, Elvis felt a little heartache and asked, "Actually, you don't have to force yourself to face them, I can handle it." Gu Mingming did not say a word and just lowered her head. She had already imagined a drama about the feud between the rich and the powerful. Elvis's father would throw a blank check at her face and say with a dark tone, "Fill in the amount yourself, take the money and get lost from my son. A woman like you is not worthy of my son." Then Gu Mingming would slap the table and stand up to retort with a classic line, "I'm different from the other women around him, I'm not with him for money." Then Elvis's father would sneer sinisterly, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, very good. Then your friends around you will start to be unlucky one by one, I want to see how long you can fight with me for?" Gu Mingming had already started to shiver. When Elvis's father threw her a check, should she obediently accept it and then use the money to support Elvis? Or should she tear it into pieces domineeringly and throw it back at his father's face? Wait, she seemed to have neglected a very important question. What question was it? There were no checks in the beast world. Then, what would his father throw at her face? Be skin? Xiaoming? Seeing that Gu Mingming did not answer him, Elvis's expression kept changing and no one knew what he was thinking. He was a little worried and frustrated. He had already tried his best not to get hurt, but that old fellow still bit his shoulder. Damn it. Gu Mingming looked up with a wronged expression. She pouted and asked, "Will you listen to your father?" "Elvis?" Gu Mingming continued, "If your father objects to you being with me, will you abandon me?" "Elvis?" Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and said, "Let's elope, we'll return to Saint Nazaire now and hide far away from him." Elvis laughed out loud. All his worries were crushed into dust by her invitation to elope. The words that he wanted to explain and comfort were stuck in his throat, finally condensing into an indulgent one. Leah held his forehead, expressing his helplessness at this development. On the way here he had already noticed that something was wrong with Elvis. Combined with the aura of the orcs who were secretly following them, he could roughly guess the relationship between them and Elvis. But it was obvious that the relationship between Elvis and his beast father was different from what Gu Mingming had imagined. However, he and Elvis were happy to see her not getting involved in this mess, so Leah did not insist on it. He raised his head and said, "If you want to run you have to be quick. Otherwise they will catch up to us." Gu Mingming sat up straight and was about to climb down from the tree with Elvis. The moment she moved she was taken aback and smiled bitterly, "It's already too late." Leah and Elvis quickly straightened their bodies and entered a state of alertness. They knew very well that Gu Mingming's senses were sharper than theirs. Gu Mingming sat on a tree branch and pointed at the bushes not far away. She smiled and said, "Since we are already here, why hide?" The bushes shook a few times and a male stood up from the bushes. He was tall and burly, exuding an indescribable aura from his body. He looked very much like a darkened version of Elvis. His genes were so strong that there was no need for a DNA test. Aside from the topic, yeah, Daddy Elvis would be online tomorrow. So, today's update ended again. Chapter 793. Gu Mingming was still a little nervous when she saw that face. After all, it was her first time meeting an elder. Greetings, great messenger. Elvis's father spoke first and bowed to Gu Mingming under the tree. Gu Mingming felt a little awkward. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and allowed him to carry her down from the tree. Just as she was about to say something to Elvis's father, Elvis spoke first. How dare you approach this place alone? Have you really gone senile? Gu Mingming was taken aback and did not know what to say. 16 years old, so Elvis was in his rebellious phase now? The injury on your shoulder doesn't seem to be enough to let you understand the difference between you and me, right? Gu Mingming frowned. So Elvis's way of educating Xianhu was passed down from his ancestors? Did their family always have such a strong tone? Elvis placed Gu Mingming in Li's arms, then walked towards his beast father. Standing 3 steps away from them, they faced each other. Gu Mingming could almost see the sparks between their eyes. She could feel the sparks flying in their eyes. A male with a female is equivalent to having misgivings and weaknesses. My stupid son, you are actually so deeply involved in it. You have really let down my expectations of you. Elvis sneered and moved his neck left and right. This was a small movement before he prepared to attack. Gu Mingming knew that once this small movement appeared, it meant that he was going to fight with his life on the line. He would not stop until he was dead. With his own father, did he need to be so ruthless? Gu Mingming was worried that something would really happen during the fight. She called out, "Hubby, don't fool around." Elvis's back stiffened, but he still turned around and returned to Gu Mingming's side without any hesitation. His father did not say anything and just smiled in disdain. That smile was extremely sarcastic and arrogant, making people uncomfortable. She did not know how to describe that kind of oppression. Gu Mingming did not like this father-in-law. Even though his appearance was almost 80% similar to Elvis, she still did not like him. With conflict, her tone was naturally not very friendly. She said coldly, "I respect that you are Elvis's father, so I do not intend to treat you in any discordant manner. But I really do not like others to bully my man. So please stop before you go too far. If you have anything to say to me, please say it quickly and leave immediately. Because my man obviously doesn't want to see you." Elvis's father took a step forward and sized up Gu Mingming. It was not as if he was inspecting his daughter-in-law, but more like food. Gu Mingming did not like his gaze but did not want to argue with him. "You want to eat me?" He was just afraid that his teeth weren't good enough and he wouldn't be able to bite down. "I want the kiss of the ocean in your hands. Give it to me and I'll leave." "Impossible, I have other uses for this." Gu Mingming rejected him confidently. Elvis's father seemed to have expected that Gu Mingming would not agree so easily, so he lowered his shoulders slightly and stretched his shoulder blades. "Since that's the case, I can only rely on my own abilities to snatch it from you." Her malicious and murderous gaze landed on Elvis. "I heard that he is your first partner. Let's start with him. If you change your mind and are willing to give the kiss of the ocean to me, tell me. If it's in time, it might be able to save his life." Chapter 794. Both of their fighting styles were swift and fierce. Every move was aimed at fatal spots, and there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness in their movements. Gu Mingming also became nervous. She clenched her fists tightly, trying to control her emotions. A cold sensation wrapped around her ankle. Looking down, she saw a familiar snake tail wrapping itself around her. "Wabi-ai." Gu Mingming was puzzled. Wabi-ai yawned nonchalantly. "Only by protecting you can your little wolf have nothing to worry about. Didn't you realize? That fellow only needs to create the illusion that he is going to attack you, and your little wolf will be distracted. And he will always be on the defensive. Even though they are evenly matched, they are already at a disadvantage." Even though they knew that no one in the beast world could hurt her, she was still their weakness. These words were not just empty words. Indeed, after Wabi-ai protected Gu Mingming tightly, Elvis's passive situation was alleviated. Although he had already suffered many injuries, his gaze was more focused and his judgment sharpened. Including the time in the ocean, Gu Mingming had fought with stray beasts twice. She knew that the stray beasts' fighting style was brutal and ruthless, but she didn't know they could be this wild. If a battle between a proper tribe and a stray beast was like an NBA basketball game, exciting and tense, with no mistakes allowed and every shot determined the outcome of the game. Then the battle between Elvis and his father was like an underground basketball game with a life and death contract. Winning and losing was not just about the game but also about life and death. So, unless Elvis died or killed his own father with his own hands, this battle would not stop? Was he going to force his own son to this extent just for the kiss of the ocean? Gu Mingming really couldn't understand the family relationships in the beast world. She thought that Elvis and Kanwa's interaction was already weird enough. Who knew that it was already the gentle version? Mingming, are you going to eat the kiss of the ocean? Leah suddenly asked. Gu Mingming was taken aback for 2 seconds before she immediately smiled. Yes, I am going to eat it. That way no one will keep thinking about it and steal it. As expected, Elvis's father panicked the moment she said that. He didn't even care about his battle with Elvis or Wabi, who was protecting Gu Mingming. He pounced at Gu Mingming, prepared to snatch the kiss of the ocean from her hands. The moment he revealed a flaw, Elvis bit his thigh without hesitation and pulled him back forcefully. He threw him onto the ground and stepped on the back of his waist, looking down on him like a messenger from hell pronouncing death. His face was cold and calm, as if even the most basic fear towards death had disappeared. A trace of regret flashed in his father's eyes, but he immediately felt relieved. He coldly snorted, "The winner takes all. If you want to kill me, then kill me." Elvis had no intention to be courteous with him. He raised his sharp claws and dug straight for his heart. Wait. Gu Mingming opened her mouth and only used 2 words to disperse Elvis's murderous aura. The claws transformed into human hands in midair and Elvis tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming, as if waiting for her to continue. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis didn't have a good impression of his father. Even if he didn't know what had happened in the past, Gu Mingming still had the ability to tell the truth. But Gu Mingming still couldn't kill her own father with her own hands. She did not want to force Elvis to forgive his parents, but at least let them live. This way, when Elvis wanted to forgive them one day, he would have the chance to hear that, "Sorry." Leah. Gu Mingming turned towards Leah. Leah was the professional when it came to saving lives. Chapter 796. Glancing at Elvis's father, Gu Mingming shook her head. "Let's go together." Leah tilted his head and raised his brows. "Are you belittling me and thinking that I will be bullied?" Gu Mingming shook her head. "I can't bear to be separated from you, not even for a second." Yeah, this was a reason he could not reject. Leah knew that Gu Mingming was just trying to appease him, but he could not bear to expose this sweet little lie. The feeling of being pestered by her felt so good. Looking up at Elvis, Leah chuckled. "First partner, the female has spoken. What should we do?" The place that had once been like hell to him no longer held any special meaning now. The male whom he had once thought he would never be able to defeat, now had one of his legs bitten to pieces by him. The female whom he had repeatedly resented for giving birth to him. He could not even remember what she looked like now. Even so, since Xiaoming felt that he should go and see her, then so be it. Carrying Gu Mingming, he slowly walked in front of his father. Elvis looked at him coldly as if he was looking at a stranger. He slowly opened his mouth. His voice sounded like a soul-sucking demon from hell. "Peter, you better not play any tricks. Otherwise, I can easily destroy everything you have now, including that female." Threatening his own father, be it his expression or words, were much sharper than when he was fighting Kanwu. In comparison, Elvis was practically a loving father to Kanwu. Gu Mingming facepalmed. She no longer had the energy to criticize the way this father and son interacted with each other. Ignoring Peter, Elvis walked past him and headed towards the place where he used to rest based on his memory. Wabi continued to follow lazily while Ian circled in the sky. Leah was unexpectedly kind and used a tree branch as a splint to fix Peter's leg in place. Then he wagged his tail and followed beside Gu Mingming. He smiled slyly and asked her to repeat that she couldn't bear to leave him, not even for a second. Perhaps this was the first time someone had entered the stray beast's territory of their own accord. Moreover, he looked like he was on an outing and seemed to be in a good mood. This scene was especially strange in the eyes of the stray beasts. A 5th-level snake beast, a 5th-level wolf beast, a 4th-level snow fox and a 3rd-level birdman. This combination was not to be trifled with. However, the little beauty in the wolf beast's arms looked very alluring and smelled very nice. The primitive restlessness triggered a series of low whimpers. His lecherous and greedy gaze lingered on Gu Mingming, making her feel extremely displeased. Cupping Elvis's face with both hands, she looked at Leah and said, "If you feel uncomfortable, you must tell me." The two males chuckled, feeling rather helpless, but they could only nod their heads. Then Gu Mingming swept a cold glance across the area and instantly unleashed a powerful suppressive force, causing those stray beasts to collapse to the ground. Elvis and Wabi were still alright, while Leah looked like he was struggling to hold on. But Ian, who was flying in midair, fell straight down. He looked at Gu Mingming with a pitiful expression. Sorry, Gu Mingming stuck her tongue out at Ian apologetically. First level and second level stray beasts were forced back to their original forms by Gu Mingming. Third level and above stray beasts might not die, but their brains were also in a mess. Beast King level? Beast King? His bones were trembling and his only instinct was to escape. Chapter 797. The layout of the cave reminded Gu Mingming of the water curtain cave in Journey to the West. Apart from the fact that there was no waterfall at the entrance, any monkey would be able to pull up the great sage equaling heaven's flag with a pole. She really couldn't tell that this was the cave of a stray beast leader. She had thought that stray beasts lived in places that were as grand as the Lion Camel Ridge. Taking a few steps in, she saw a thick bed made from animal skin. A female lay on it, so skinny that she barely resembled a human. Gu Mingming shot Leah a look and he walked up to check on her condition. Surprisingly, she didn't have any external injuries or internal illnesses. She just looked like she was about to die. Leah looked at Peter and asked, "How long has she been like this?" Peter frowned. "She has been like this since the end of the monsoon season. She refused to eat and has been starving." Gu Mingming instinctively glanced at Elvis. Elvis's expression was indifferent and he didn't react at all. He really treated this female as a stranger. Gu Mingming sighed. "You guys go out first. I want to talk to her." Elvis surveyed the surroundings. After confirming that this female was alone, he didn't have anything to worry about. He turned to leave first. Peter was worried but had no other choice but to follow. After everyone left, Gu Mingming sat beside the female. "I am Gu Mingming. I am Elvis's partner." The female's eyes brightened at that. Her first reaction was to look at the cave entrance. But Elvis had already walked far away. She couldn't even see his back. There was a moment of disappointment, but it wasn't too obvious. She just lowered her head and didn't say a word. "Shall I call Elvis in and let him talk to you?" Gu Mingming probed. The female seemed to hesitate for a moment before shaking her head. "I don't have the face to see him. As long as he is alive, that's enough. All mothers were the same. How could they not dote on their own children?" Gu Mingming saw that the female was willing to talk about Elvis, so she continued asking. "Elvis has never been willing to tell me about his childhood. But I am actually quite curious. If you are willing, why don't you tell me about Elvis when he was young?" The female's gaze dimmed. Her eyelids drooped and even her fingertips trembled. "His childhood was a disaster. You shouldn't have brought him back here. It wasn't easy for him to escape." Thinking about how Elvis and his father met, Gu Mingming could almost understand what the so-called disaster was about. "But I heard that you're very sick. We can't just leave you to die. After all, you are Elvis's mother," Gu Mingming said. The female closed her eyes slowly and a teardrop fell from the corner of her eye onto the beast's skin. "Elvis, perhaps he wished that he never had a mother like me. You guys go, don't worry about me. This is the price I should pay." Gu Mingming did not understand what she meant, she just felt that the teardrop was really sad. "Maybe you can tell me about your difficulties. Maybe I can help you." The female shook her head. "He won't agree. No one can save me. I'm already very satisfied to know that Elvis is safe and sound before I die. I can die without regrets." Chapter 798. The female was clearly smiling, but her face was filled with despair. Why? Gu Mingming didn't understand. She could understand if she had wanted to die from the torment and humiliation she had suffered when she was kidnapped by the stray beasts. Now Elvis was already 16 years old. If she wanted to die from the humiliation, wasn't that too long a reaction? Peter's attitude towards this female was not the same as a normal stray beast's attitude towards a female he had kidnapped. She could tell from the place she lived and Peter's willingness to risk his life to snatch the kiss of the ocean for her. Not to mention her current level of power, just the presence of Elvis and Wabi alone was enough to put him in a perilous situation. For him to be willing to risk his life for her. Gu Mingming didn't believe that he didn't treat her well. So Gu Mingming just couldn't understand why she suddenly didn't want to live. "Do you know what despair is?" The female spoke slowly. Her voice was as soft as a feather being blown away by the wind. If one didn't listen carefully, they wouldn't even be able to hear her voice. "Despair?" Gu Mingming didn't have a deep understanding of this word. In the modern world, she was the kind of person whose grandmother didn't care for her and uncle didn't love her. When she was 4 years old, her father had an affair and married a young mistress, forcing her mother to divorce. When she was 6 years old, her mother brought her along to remarry. Then she began a long life of watching her mother suffer domestic abuse because she was a burden. Every day she would tremble all over at the sound of the door. She was truly terrified. But this kind of life only lasted until she was 13 years old. Her stepfather could no longer tolerate an extra person in the house, so she was chased out. Holding her 2-year-old brother in her arms, Mom chose the latter between her and her family. Many people said she was pitiful, deserving of sympathy and pity. But she didn't think so. There were curves in life and it wouldn't always go down. When you were extremely unlucky, you would always be able to live on. So she tried her best to find a place where she could work without identification. Even if the pay was low, as long as food and lodging were provided. Although it was tough, she still felt that her life was getting better day by day. Despair was never a word that existed in her dictionary. After transmigrating to the beast deity, she was very flustered and did not know what to do. However, Elvis and Leah had given her more warmth and love than the accumulated 18 years of being together in the modern world. Although there would always be problems, she had never doubted the happiness she had. So, what kind of despair would make this female give up her life? It was a long and slow process of torture. During this process, every second was torture. Your stomach would constantly challenge your determination to die. But even so, she actually endured for nearly half a year. Chapter 799. After that, I even started to persuade Peter to stay. In order to prevent him from hurting my males, I even took the initiative to seduce him. The female's gaze remained blank, as if she was narrating someone else's story in the third person. It would not hurt so much if it had nothing to do with her. It was then that I became pregnant with Elvis. At the mention of Elvis, the female instinctively looked towards the entrance of the cave. Unfortunately, there was nothing there. Although I did not love Peter, it was my first pregnancy after all. I was still very happy. But Peter was forcing me to choose between my children and my only remaining companion. He said that if I wanted to keep my partner, I had to mate with him until the child was miscarried. If I wanted to keep my child, then he had to leave this cave immediately until I gave birth. But the price was that the 2 remaining marks on my body would disappear. Gu Mingming frowned. She could understand if she said that she could not tolerate other males because she was too possessive. But wasn't it too perverted to mate until the child was miscarried? After all, it was his own flesh and blood in that womb. The female seemed to have seen Gu Mingming's expression, or rather, she did not care about Gu Mingming's reaction. She just needed an outlet to vent all the emotions that she had not dared to express all these years. I was ultimately selfish. I wanted to keep my child. So that night, the 2 marks on my chest disappeared at the same time. Even though I kept praying for them to escape, they still died. For the sake of the child in my womb, I forced myself to live on. I had to live on. So no matter how much I vomited or how much pain I was in, I gritted my teeth and persevered. But when my child was not even a month old, he took them all away. I was imprisoned in this cave, unable to see the light of day. In order to see my child, I gave up my pride and everything to please him. But all I got in return was one nightmare after another. Out of the 6 wolf pups, only Elvis survived. He kept using Elvis to threaten me. As long as I showed the slightest sign of disobedience, he would torture Elvis. I did not even dare to die. During the rainy season, I finally knew that my Elvis was so strong that he could no longer hurt me easily. I could finally be at ease. Finally, I am free. He killed my partner, killed my son, imprisoned me here and tortured me. And after so many years, even my hatred has been worn away. True despair is when I don't even have the desire to kill him for revenge. There's nothing in this world that I'm reluctant to part with anymore. Be it love or hate, there's nothing left. Gu Mingming quietly listened to her finish recounting the past, not interrupting in the middle. Until she had finished, she slowly closed her eyes, looking as if her heart was as still as water and only wished for death. Gu Mingming then tested the waters. Maybe I can bring you away. Bring you to Saint Nazir to live with me and Elvis? In this case, are you willing? The female's eyelashes fluttered. Gu Mingming's words were like a pebble thrown into the calm lake in her heart, causing ripples to form. Chapter 800. That's right, given her current condition, even if she ate properly, she might not survive the winter, much less looking like she was begging for death. Elvis and I have 4 sons. It's a pity we didn't bring them along this time. Don't you want to meet them? Gu Mingming continued trying to persuade her. The female's lips curled up slightly as if she was comforted. But she didn't say a word. Instead, she looked like she could be at ease. Gu Mingming held the female's hand gently. She had seen so many battles between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law in television dramas, but never imagined that her first meeting with her mother-in-law would be to persuade her not to commit suicide. Perhaps her body was really weak. After speaking so much, she had already fallen asleep from exhaustion. Gu Mingming pulled up the beast's skin and covered her up before leaving the cave. Elvis seemed to have become impatient from waiting. Just as he was about to go berserk, he finally saw her coming out from inside and his tightly furrowed brows relaxed. He scooped her into his arms and hugged her tightly. Only then did he feel at ease. Peter looked into the cave with concern in his eyes. Even though he couldn't see the female from this angle. Gu Mingming said, "She said a lot and is very weak now. She has already fallen asleep." Peter was taken aback. He stared at Gu Mingming in disbelief for a long time. He said doubtfully, She spoke to you?" Gu Mingming nodded. Peter was so agitated that he almost cried. "She's willing to speak. It's good that she's willing to speak. She hasn't spoken for months. No matter what I do, she won't say a single word." Gu Mingming really didn't understand. Since Peter loved her so much, why did he do such cruel things to hurt her? What was his motive? "Lower your voice. She just fell asleep." Before Gu Mingming finished her sentence, Peter was already nodding and keeping his mouth shut, not daring to make a sound. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and gestured for him to walk out. Peter wanted to ask more about the female, so he naturally followed. When they were far enough away, Gu Mingming asked Elvis to stop. She then frowned and sized Peter up. "What did she say to you?" Peter desperately wanted to know every word she said. Even if it was just a paraphrase, it would be a great comfort to him. Gu Mingming pursed her lips and did not speak. She just stared at Peter. Wabi said lazily, "I'm tired. I'll find a place to sleep. Wake me up when it's time to eat." Ian rolled his eyes at Gu Mingming with a face that looked like he was about to die. It was obvious that he was still holding a grudge against her for releasing her pressure outside and causing him to fall. Without saying a word, he left with Wabi. Leah sighed. Although he was also Gu Mingming's partner now, this was clearly an old matter of the Elvis family and it was not convenient for him to listen in. Hence, he kissed Gu Mingming's little face and said, "We haven't had lunch yet. I'll go prepare something delicious for you. Auntie looks very weak, so I'll prepare some good food for her." Gu Mingming understood everyone's consideration, so she nodded and returned a kiss on Lee's cheek. "Thank you." Leah lightly scratched Gu Mingming's little nose and smiled. "Silly girl, why are you thanking me?" Chapter 801. What truth? Peter asked. Gu Mingming looked at Peter's expression and knew that he had already guessed it. It was just that he was unwilling to admit or mention it. "She said that she was the one who turned you into a stray beast. So you were once partners? I can see that you have deep feelings for her. She doesn't seem like an unreasonable female. Why did she make a fuss to remove the mating mark?" Peter laughed bitterly. His gaze drifted towards the cave. He said in an obscure voice, "She really talked to you?" Gu Mingming sighed. "If you really don't want to tell me, I won't force you. But let me tell you the truth. Given her current condition, she can't survive the coming winter. Even if I give you the kiss of the ocean, she won't be able to withstand the immense power of the kiss of the ocean in her current condition. If you force it on her, she will only explode and die prematurely." Peter frowned. He glared at Gu Mingming with a murderous look. Gu Mingming's words about that female dying had clearly hurt him. But this little female who said she would die was the only female who could make him speak in the past few months. Perhaps she really had a way? Suppressing his dissatisfaction, Peter slowly said, "I removed the mating mark, because she didn't like me from the start. No matter what I did, she would only hide from me. She would run away the moment she saw me. She didn't give me any chance at all. So, I used force on her." Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Did he really rape her? No wonder she wanted to remove the mating mark with him regardless of whether you lived or died. If it were her, she wouldn't have allowed a rapist's mark to remain on her body. "You don't have to look at me like that. I never felt that I did anything wrong." Peter lifted his head and continued, "Firstly, I was able to snatch her away from her partner and forcefully mate with her in a deserted place. This proves that her partner is too weak and can't protect her at all. She needs a strong partner to ensure her own safety. Secondly, if I mate with her, it will be a gamble with my own life. After I mate with her, her life will be my life. She will know that I will not harm her at all. She does not need to be afraid of me. As long as she is not afraid of me, she will slowly realize how good I am. I am confident that I can move her. Even if she cannot fall in love with me in the end, I am willing to stay by her side unloved for the rest of my life and protect her from all dangers. Even if I can only become food in the end, I am willing. But obviously, I lost. Even if I put my life in her hands, she was still unwilling to look at me. She was still afraid of me, still resisted me, still didn't believe that I wouldn't hurt her. Gu Mingming coldly interrupted Peter's words. The facts prove that you have hurt her. A scumbag will always be a scumbag. No matter how much love you pretend to have, you can't change the fact that you tortured her for more than 10 years. I didn't. Peter denied agitatedly. Not to be outdone, Gu Mingming questioned him. You didn't? You raped her and you still say you didn't? I just needed a chance to prove to her that I love her. Peter growled. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. You forced her to do something she doesn't like just because you love her? Have you ever thought about how helpless, how humiliated, and how scared your so-called opportunity made her feel? You are in the process of hurting her to prove that she doesn't need to fear you? What a preposterous argument. Aside from the topic, a man used all his resources to buy a whole cart of bananas to confess to the girl he loved. The girl rejected him. Then, everyone started discussing and criticizing the girl for not knowing what was good for her. She had given up everything for you, yet you still rejected her. The girl felt very innocent and helpless. She had never asked a guy to do such things for her. Moreover, she didn't like bananas at all. So, Susu said that blindly giving up in love was meaningless. Unrestrained giving would only move one's heart and coerce one's lover. Learn to love and know how to give others what they want, not what you want to give them. Chapter 802. Peter clenched his fists and growled angrily, since that's the case, why doesn't she just kill me to vent her anger? If she hates me, she can just kill me. None of her partners can defeat you, how can she kill you? Gu Mingming roared back, refusing to back down. Peter laughed coldly. If she wants me dead, she just needs to say the word and I will personally dig open my own chest and crush my heart in front of her. As long as she can feel just a little bit of happiness for me, just a little bit. Gu Mingming was completely speechless. Where did the males in the beast world get their weird views on love from? They were practically twisted into instant noodles. But she didn't do it even once. How much does she hate me to use such a method to torture me? Peter seemed to have lost all his energy and fell to the ground. The wound on his leg split open and blood flowed out. But he continued as if he didn't feel anything. Even though I became a stray beast, I still love her. No matter how many females I snatched, I never touched any of them. If it wasn't her, I would feel disgusted. So I went back to snatch her back. I thought that since I am already a stray beast, snatching females is the most normal thing to do. So what if I don't have a mating contract? I just want to keep her by my side. I want to torture her, I want to take revenge on her. But in the end, every time I see her, I lose all will. Every time she cries, my world is thrown into chaos. Everyone says that stray beasts are heartless, but why does my heart still hurt so much? Gu Mingming frowned and asked, since that's the case, why did you still kill her partners and make her sad? Peter looked up and stared at Gu Mingming in a daze for a moment. Suddenly he laughed. She still thinks that I killed her partners? Even after so many years, she still thinks so. She still doesn't believe that I would not hurt her. Gu Mingming frowned and thought to herself, could it be a misunderstanding? But she clearly said that every time Peter left the house, a few marks on her body would disappear. Once or twice could be a coincidence, but wasn't it too far-fetched to claim that it was a coincidence every time? Peter sighed and said, she refuses to talk to me now. She won't believe anything I say. I'll tell you the truth and you help me persuade her, okay? Gu Mingming did not directly agree but said, that depends on how real your truth is and whether it is worth my help. Peter's face was full of sorrow. It was faint but it didn't melt away. After I snatched Natalie back, her other partners went crazy looking for me all over the world. Then they found this place. They contacted the other males who had their females snatched away and started a fight. But how could a bunch of fellows with no battle experience other than hunting compete with stray beasts? Every time they attack, I'm not there to kill. I'm there to save people. But they refused to listen to me and I had to hide my identity from the other stray beasts. I really tried my best but I couldn't save everyone every time. Like you said, I can't save someone who wants to die. Their attack back then was no different from suicide. I tried my best, I really tried my best. But in the end, not a single one of them was saved. Peter's expression was especially heavy, as if he had not forgotten the look in Natalie's eyes when she had wronged him and misunderstood him. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.